Welcome back, Richard. It's good to see you this morning.
Morning. How are things over there?
Doing swell. We have a lot of stuff going on. Both,
Yeah, you said you were busy.
yeah. We have a lot of things happening. But we're going to talk about someone being busy. We're going to talk today about
Mhm.
some advice for new parents.
Right. Yeah, we talked last week. We talked about the lifespan transitions
Right.
and what happens at each stage. And you know, prior to age 21, you want time to go by real fast so you can get to these. So I can be 16 and I can drive, 15 and I can get my license, 16 I can drive, 18 I'm an adult, 21 I'm really an adult.
Hmm.
So you can't wait to get to these milestones. You want time to go by quickly. And then you get to adulthood, suddenly you're an adult and you discover that you're too busy with
Hmm.
career and marriage and children, taking care of a house, taking care of a car, taking care of your stuff, that you don't have much bandwidth to think about anything else. Then you get to midlife and you kind of stop because you get this shock to your system because you get to midlife and you think, oh my goodness, this is not what I intended.
Right.
This is not where I intended to be or what I thought I'd be doing at this point in my life. And that's sort of that midlife crisis mentality.
Hmm.
And then in a couple of years, you start to your joints and your organs begin to show the wear and tear of abuse and neglect, and things start to hurt and you can't do what you thought you could do. Remember, you used to be able to jump on a table
Hmm. Yeah.
30 inch
Yeah.
vertically. Can you still do that?
No, not as easily.
Yeah, but you used to do that
Yeah.
easily. You do it whenever you want it. And so those things start to happen, sore knees and sore backs, and your internal organs begin to fail
Yeah.
because you've abused and neglected your body. There is a little bit of good news here, and that is that as you get older,
Hmm.
there's a silver lining. I like to think of it as a gray lining because we have gray
Right.
hair. What you lose in strength and stamina and energy, you make up for with experience, knowledge, and wisdom.
Right.
In our culture, these are not valued as much as they are in some cultures.
Hmm.
And the elderly are sometimes the brunt of jokes.
Yeah.
We're entertaining because we can't remember stuff and we get old. And sometimes we're seen as a nuisance, an inconvenience, and a burden.
Hmm.
Uh, and we don't know how to use devices. We can't keep up physically. We know that. We have no idea how to use these devices like cell phones, and my kids are always reminding us of that. We can't summon an Uber.
Yeah.
Take your kids have to summon an Uber, and we can't see the fine print on anything. And you get to a point in your life where everything's fine print. It
Right.
doesn't matter what it is. It used to be medicine bottles. Now
Hmm.
everything is fine print. So all that begins to happen. And you can laugh at our shortcomings,
Hmm.
which my children do. You can laugh at our shortcoming, and you can resent the time that it takes for you to show us how to use that app again, or how to correct the test. Remember,
Hmm.
you've shown me what twice this week of how to change a score on a test.
Hmm.
So to show us how to use apps or to bring something, to bring something, we do have something, even though we frustrate you. We have something that we want you to use.
Right.
And it's our perspective on raising children and our advice on raising children that we want to give to you with no cost, no obligation. We
Mhm.
just offer it.
Right.
Um,
No
and that's
subscription
what we do
necessary.
today, right? Because we do have this perspective and this knowledge that will help any new parent raise their children
Hmm.
a better, more successful way to get where you want to be.
Right. Because, with all those transitions that you're talking about, we're talking about two big transitions happening at the same time. One is parents, you know, adults becoming new parents, and
Right,
then older adults becoming new grandparents.
right,
And so you have this perspective where you have one group beginning this journey as new parents, and then you have this other group who have done that before and
right.
have some perspective and opinions and things to share. And
Mhm.
advice. And there are thousands and thousands and thousands of books and videos and websites and everything out there about how to raise kids. And you know th they vary sometimes greatly about what those that recommendation is.
Right.
But you know overall there's some general baseline goals of that we should have at different developmental stages. And when you're talking about babies and you're talking about early childhood, the primary goal we all should have, every parent should have, is we just have to raise our child to get them ready to go to school. Because
You
that's
know,
the first huge transition for
that's right.
kids outside of the home.
When we talk about the perspective that we have, we know how this is turning out because we've raised our children and
Right,
they're now adults. And you realize that you don't have to sweat. You don't have to worry about a lot of stuff
right.
that you worry about as a new parent. And you just, and there was, I think it was a book written, don't sweat the small stuff.
Hmm.
And most of it is small stuff.
Right,
And I think that's good advice for new parents.
right.
You're going to worry about a lot of things that you don't need to worry about. But you do need to worry about one thing. In those first 5 years of life, you have got to get your kids ready to go to school.
Hmm.
I mean, everything else is necessary and important. But the most important thing you can do is get that child ready to go to kindergarten. Well, what does that mean?
Hmm. Yeah.
And for this, we have 5 by 5.
Right. Yeah, there's five big things that really need to happen by the time a kid is entering kindergarten. They need to be toilet trained.
Right.
Um,
They need to be able to
and
handle all that on their own.
right. And recognize that we're just saying that they need to be toilet trained by five.
Right.
Not that they have to be toilet trained by two or three. Just
Right.
by the time
You
they
have
go
five
to
years to do
school.
it. So don't sweat it.
Right.
It'll just let it, you'll be okay. They'll be trained by 5
Absolutely. They have to be able to respond and comply with verbal instructions.
because that's what they're going to get.
Right.
That teacher is going to say, time to stand up, time to sit
Right.
down, time to go here.
They have some modicum of behavioral and behavioral and emotional regulation. There are no more tantrums.
Right.
They're
Tantrums are
not
over. They're
they're
not
not
throwing
kicking and
tantrums.
screaming and falling on the floor anymore. They can clean up their own mess
Right.
and they can play with other kids.
Right. They play well together.
Those are the five things.
Right. And that's what you need. However you want to do that. Those are the 5 things that you need to do. Whatever else you do is fine, but you have to do those 5 things.
Right. And so when we think about think about those things, we can break it down a little bit further and how we're going to, accomplish this goal.
Right.
And so we could just think about the first year of life,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
The first year of life, to accomplish those goals, the parent and the child have to have a relationship.
Right.
And that relationship is typically built upon a bond, the
Right.
bond between the parent and the child. Um,
Mhm.
Parents, we have seen, we've had the unfortunate opportunity to see what happens when a parent and a child don't bond. You can't, a mother can't give birth to a baby and then just walk away. It doesn't work. The effects and the long-term implication of doing such a thing has been documented for a very, centuries. This is where you talk about like feral children and things like that. Kids who don't have a good bond with somebody early in life struggle for most of their life. The implication of that can go for the rest of their life.
Right. You have to bond to a nurturing adult, but it's the adult responsibility to provide children with that opportunity. So the adult has to be attuned to the child so that the child can bond with the parent.
Hmm.
And that's your first transition because you're transitioning from womb to world.
Hmm.
And that's a difficult transition. Here's this comfortable, warm environment, and now you're out here. So the transition from womb to world. So your first task as a parent is to ease your child through that transition.
Hmm.
We know what abuse does to children. We have
Right,
documented, but neglect does the same kind of damage.
right.
So you don't have to abuse your child to have problems. You can just neglect your child,
Hmm.
neglect that bonding experience, And that's one of the reasons why we like to have mothers breastfeed their children because it enhances that bonding experience.
Right.
You have to have that skin to skin contact. So,
Right.
first of all, in that first year of life, you have to bond with your infant.
Right. The second thing is developing and helping nurture the child's just bodily rhythms.
Rhythms.
It is it's unfortunate to see when a parent has an infant, and when again infancy, birth to about 1 year of age, um, when and the parent does nothing to help the child regulate their life cycle. So, and what we mean by regulating their life cycle is that they eat at about the same time every day, they sleep at about the same time every day.
Mm,
Their body gets into a rhythm so that it knows what to expect.
that's right.
Parents who don't do that, and they may be up really late one night and then they're up, really early the next time, and it
Mm,
just keeps changing and adjusting. The child never gets into a good rhythm, and so they don't know how to anticipate, and they don't know, you know, when they're hungry if they're going to get fed, and if they're tired if they're going to sleep, and they're going to try to stay awake at different times, and it's really difficult for the child to manage and navigate that. And again, this is going to have long-term implications. What is school? But school is routine
sure.
and
Sure.
scheduled and regulated like that. And so we can start that from birth. I mean, from the very beginning.
Yeah, one of the things that I would advise parents, my children, as they're raising children, is our bodies are rhythm machines.
Hmm.
Think about it. Your heart has a rhythm. Your eating and elimination is a rhythm. Your brain waves have these very rhythmic patterns. So every body system is a rhythm machine. Our bodies want to have predictability and rhythm. Like the day-night cycle. That's a biological
Right,
fact. I mean, we have an eating and elimination. We have an active part of our day and a restful part of our day. You frequently hear people say, well, I hate to work out in the morning. I can only work out late in the afternoon. That's because of your body rhythms, and you need to know those rhythms and obey those rhythms. But some of these rhythms are unique to the child, you
right,
know. And as a parent, when is your child? Every child has a nuclear hour. There's a time in the day when a baby and a toddler will have a difficult time. We call it their nuclear hour. When does your child slow down during the day? Nap time. When do they speed up during the day and become more difficult? When do they start to act out?
right,
You'll notice, if you're noticing, you will notice these rhythms. So you have the species specific rhythms like the day-night cycle, but you also have individual rhythms, and you have to know your child's rhythms, and you have to help them establish and maintain those rhythms. And you do that with the third thing, which is a schedule.
right. And without a schedule, all of that stuff starts to fall apart and become, again, using the word dysregulated.
Hmm.
And a schedule doesn't happen automatically. There's parents are we really encourage parents to establish a schedule, establish that routine, and stick to it. You notice that your child. We talk about this a lot with parents who have even infants who really have a hard time going to the store.
Right.
And
Yeah.
you have a 10-month-old, and every time you go to the store, they're acting out. Well, if you're trying to go to the store at the same time that the child is in that nuclear hour, or if it's at the same time that the child's, biological rhythm is sort of sped up and they're really wanting to move and be active, that's just a bad time to try to go to the store.
Hmm.
Now, I can already hear parents saying, well, my baby is not going to dictate what I do, and when I go,
Right.
I'm going to manage that myself. Okay, but you're going to have those consequences. They're going to have a rough time.
Right.
Why in the world do parents try to go to the grocery store, during feeding time?
Hmm. Hmm.
This is the time that you usually feed your baby. Why would you decide to then go to the store at that time?
Hmm.
So we have to look at those rhythms and develop a schedule and routine that fits with the biological and natural rhythm of the child.
Yeah, when we see children with ADHD or oppositional defiant disorder or mood dysregulation,
Right.
What's the first thing we tell parents? You've got to get this child on a regular schedule. They are dysregulated because they don't have a good schedule. They're sleeping at different times, eating at different times, playing at different times. You have to structure their day for them so
Mhm.
that there's predictability and some order in their day. They're not going to do it themselves,
Right.
especially a 1-year-old.
Right. Yeah.
That's up to the parent to structure that.
Yeah, there was developmental researchers years ago. I believe it was Thomas and Chess were the two researchers, and they talked about
Right.
the goodness of fit between the child's temperament. And again, with this temperament, we're talking about those that early year of life, the child's temperament and the parenting style, and that the way in which they fit together is so important as it relates to the emotional and behavioral development of the child,
Right.
because that's how you ensure that the child's needs are being met while also ensuring that their natural rhythm
Right.
is followed, and they're able to manage things. And again, thinking about that ultimate goal of having them prepared for school,
Right.
if you're not helping them to regulate and figure out how to regulate those things, they're going to struggle. Now, it is a bit malleable. You can adjust it over time, but you can't do it abruptly, and you can't do it, to use the phrase cold turkey.
Right.
You have to adjust it over time,
Mhm.
but you do have to in some way just recognize that the child has their own biological rhythm.
Yeah, school has just started here in Florida. All right.
Right.
And so if your children have to be at school at 8 o'clock, then they need to be awake at about 6 o'clock.
Hmm.
Well, it's up to you to establish a schedule so that their normal wake time is around 6 o'clock.
Right.
If you establish a schedule where the normal awake time is 7:30, you're going to have a difficult morning.
Right.
So you have to establish a schedule based on what the expectation is, whether young child or toddler or school age child.
Hmm.
You talk about Chess and Thomas and temperament, the temperamental mismatch. Barry Brazelton, another
Hmm.
pediatrician, famous pediatrician, um, he was convinced that colic was the result of a mismatch between what the parents tried to impose on the child and what the child's normal temperament was.
Right.
So if the parent is saying, you're going to do this at this time, and that's not consistent with the child's rhythms, you're going to have this fussiness, the crying that we call colic. Okay.
Right.
He said, Brazelton said, he had no colic in his practice
Hmm.
because he dealt with it as a temperamental mismatch.
Right.
So please get your child on a regular schedule. Try to keep it as consistent as possible. If you do that, you sustain those rhythms. The more routines you have, the fewer battles you're going to have.
Right.
If your child knows that this is bedtime and they do it day after day, month after month, year after year, they're going to get accustomed to 8 o'clock is bedtime.
Right.
And that's going to, then you don't have to battle it. If it's different every day,
Hmm.
if it's a different time every day, then you're going to have this battle about, no, now it's time to get ready for bed.
Right.
But if you do the same thing at the same time every day, you avoid that day-to-day battle of
Right.
bedtime. Mhm.
And so often that really is just a parenting style issue. I was talking to a parent about that yesterday, parent of an older kid who the child probably has ADHD. We're going to do some assessments for it. But the reaction sensitivity disorders and the
Yeah.
pervasive all these other new diagnoses that are being thrown out there now as it relates to a child's reaction to things and having demands placed upon them.
Right.
Um, Most of the time, that really is just a mismatch between how the parent is requesting and demanding the child to do things and the child's temperament.
Right.
And if we can match those things, and what you're doing during this early period of development, during that first year of life, sets
Mhm.
the stage for everything that comes after that.
Mhm.
And man, if there's any way to just really strengthen that understanding for parents, that first year, those especially the first 3 years, but starting with that first year, that creates the foundation for everything that comes after that.
Correct.
Everything.
Correct. Right.
And if you
Yeah.
can establish a solid foundation, your life is going to be so much better. It's like,
And
again,
that's right.
take
He's
it
right.
from some grandparents that know, have been there and have, worked through this a couple of times. That early foundation is so important.
And you have 2 years to do that. Okay. You
Right.
have this first year that we're talking about, but this extends into the second year so that
Hmm.
by the time the child is 18 or 24 months, you're going to continue doing this during year two. All right. It will get a little more difficult the longer you wait.
Hmm.
So the goal is to establish these routines based on the child's rhythms as early as possible. And it then you get to the twos and the threes, and they won't be the terrible twos and threes. How many times have you heard, oh, well, they sent their child to a military school and he did great.
Hmm.
What does the military school offer? Consistency. You get up at the same time, you
Right.
clean your room, you have breakfast at this time. And these kids thrive on that schedule.
Right.
That's the biggest difference is you
Right.
have a regular schedule and
Right.
your whole body settles into that rhythm,
Right. So,
right?
so, so here's the parents, here's the tough part. Here's our advice.
That-
Because what
We have
our,
a right to do this, right?
huh?
We've earned the right to give you advice.
I think so.
We know about this stuff, okay?
The primary observation that we've made, and again, I think that there's some research to support this. The primary research that we've done and we've observed is that one of the main impediments to doing this is that parents aren't paying attention. I saw a parent, I was going to the store the other day, I saw a parent, small child, a small child enough to where the parent even went so far as to put, the padding in the shopping cart, that the baby's going to be in, so that because the baby isn't even big enough to hold themselves up steady, so they put these blankets and cushions around so that if they fall forward, there's nothing. It's, bougie. So, but even a child that small, as soon as they put the child down, cell phone right in front of the child.
Really?
Yeah. Um, and you see parents who's, will go out to our waiting room and a child will be out there, being louder than one would hope that they would be in a community waiting room. And you see the parents on their phone, you know? And so we're not paying attention to what's going on and in our phones and our own technology. We talk for all the talking that we do about kids' time on their technology, parents put the phone down.
Right.
Pay attention to what your baby's doing. Pay attention to what your baby's needs are so that you can get into those rhythms, so you can create those routines, so that you can acknowledge and recognize what your child's needs are.
Right. Yeah, because you cannot bond. We talk about bonding,
Hmm.
rhythms, and schedules. You can't bond, you can't know their rhythms, you can't maintain a schedule if you're distracted.
Right.
Okay. So what are the distractions? Well, it used to be, it could be TV.
Hmm.
Sadly, for some parents, it's drugs and alcohol. They're distracted by those.
Hmm.
It could be friends, it could be people calling you,
Right.
other kids, other obligations, anything that interferes with careful observation
Hmm.
of your newborn. But what is the major distraction today is the cell phone.
Hmm.
And why is it? Because your cell phone is always with you. You can use you can do whatever you want and keep your cell phone in one hand, okay,
Hmm.
and hold the baby with the other hand. And we see it all
Hmm.
the time. And also, many adults don't view the cell phone as a problem.
Right.
They see it as their best friend or a necessary device, and they don't see it as a problem. And they certainly don't see it as something that's interfering with their ability to parent.
Yeah. Right. So, we recognize that you always have your phone with you and that
Right.
much of our life is dictated and managed and mediated through our phones.
Hmm.
But during the time, so our advice to new parents, especially parents with babies, um, when your child is awake, when you're interacting with your child, when your child is moving throughout the house and you're managing things, use that time to just have that time as a time that you just put your phone down, turn it off, put it to the side, turn
On
notifications off, whatever it
silent.
may be.
Hmm.
Babies, from birth to about 1 year of age, most of their day is spent sleeping.
Right.
So use it when they're asleep. Okay, that's understandable. But when they're awake and when you're interacting with them and when you're meeting their needs,
Hmm.
maybe that should be a time to put it down and make sure that you're attending to and acknowledging and recognizing some of the needs that your child has.
Right. When like you said that the infants birth to 12 months will sleep somewhere between 14 and 20 hours a day.
Yeah.
Most of their time is spent sleeping. So you have, depending on your infant, you have between 14 and 20 hours a day when your baby is asleep to
Hmm.
do whatever you want to do on your phone. But when the newborn is awake, that newborn needs to have your undivided attention so that you are taking care of her rhythms and her needs. When the baby's awake, give that baby, give that infant your undivided attention. It's only a few hours a day that
Right.
you have to do that. The rest of the time is yours,
Right.
even 14 hours a day. It's all yours. Use it as you choose. But during the baby's awake hours, you need to attend to that baby. And you're going to have to do this in the second year of life as well. We would give
Right.
you the same advice. So my advice to my children is when your infant, birth to 12 months, when your infant is awake, turn off your cell phone and attend only to that infant.
Right. Yeah. And again, we understand that it's difficult because we are so tied to our devices.
Yeah.
But the consequences, and again, long-term consequences. We're not even just talking about consequences for that day. We're talking about
Mhm.
long-term consequences over time are pretty great. They're pretty significant. And
Right.
so you want to make sure that you're taking that time during that first year of, at least during the first year to 2 years of life, that you're taking that time to make sure that you're focusing and you're paying attention and you're attending to that natural rhythm and that routine that your child's biology has so that
Yeah.
you can establish those routines and schedules for, the rest of life, so that your child gets into that to get into that smooth rhythm so that by the time they're 5, they are regulated, they are able to manage things. Those are the kids that don't have as many problems with temper tantrums. Those are the kids that don't have as many problems with taking directions from other people because they know that people who are giving them direction care about them and they're attentive to them and they're paying attention. I don't have to have a temper tantrum to get my mom to give me a bottle
Right.
because she recognizes when it's time for me to eat.
Right.
That's
That need
that's
is
a great life.
that need is met even before I have to ask for it. But if I ask for it, my mother is attending to me, and
Hmm.
that need is going to be met.
Right.
Okay. And
Yeah.
so we're not telling you to put your children in the center of the universe and spoil them. We're saying attend to them so that you know their rhythms and you can anticipate what they need and you're attentive to their requests. And
Absolutely.
avoid the tantrums, you avoid the screaming, you avoid the those difficult interactions of getting them up and getting them to bed and getting them bathed and all that stuff. Establish those routines, establish the schedule, and you eliminate all the battles.
Absolutely. And we recognize, kind of bringing it back to the beginning, we recognize that this is a new transition
Right.
for new parents with babies. So this is just something that you yourself have to work on and you have to adjust to. Um, Adjust you will, adjust you can, but you just have to be intentional about it and just do it.
Right.
So,
Yep.
all right.
Okay.
With that, that is it for today. We will be back next time. I think next time we're going to talk a little bit about ADHD.
Yep.
So
Start of school. Got to talk
that's
about
right.
ADHD again.
All
Yep.
right. So until next time, stay happy, stay healthy, and forget to be afraid.